Let's talk about podcast music. The thing is that if you're trying to really elevate your podcast stature, if you will, music can really help you a lot. And so let me give you some general considerations here. So, first of all, you have to really have a clear idea about the types of podcast music that can really help you out, okay? You can have a podcast intro music, you can have background music as well. So, the big question is which one really can elevate your podcast? Which one does your audience care about? Which one can really add value? Because it's not just about adding a podcast music just because you want to really make yourself comfortable or happy. No, it's all about your audience. It's all about your listeners. Okay, and so when I speak about your podcast intro music, this is actually known as your theme tune. It's actually the music that opens the show, and it will usually play towards the end of your episodes too. And so, podcast intro music lets folks identify your show within a second or two of its starting. The likelihood is that your latest episode is in a playlist with a few other shows. So, if the listener is now looking at their phone, they'll still know that it's you almost immediately, right? It's all about sonic branding, it's all about sound branding. So, with podcast intro music, you want to keep it short and sweet. Anything longer than 8 seconds without any talking can begin to grate on listeners. They'll just hit the skip button or use an app like Overcast to auto start a minute or two into every episode. Okay, so that's for the podcast intro music. Then you have also the background music. So background music is less common in podcasting. You'll typically finding an audio or drama or documentary podcast, but not so much in most solo or interview shows. The show you're listening to right now, we do have background music. That just helps listeners actually like engage and also feel comfortable. And background music can also be known as a music bed, which plays underneath a vocal segment to add some ambience and mood. And this type of music actually is kind of cool because it can be used to fade up and transition between different content segments. And so, what is the decision I want you to think about here? What kind of music can you legally use in your podcast? Well, you have to think about relative free music for podcasters. Okay, that's an important element. You can have Creative Commons music for podcasters. That's another source. And you also have public domain music for podcasters. So what happens here is that music goes out of copyright and into the public domain after a certain amount of years. Usually it's like 70 years, or this follows the death of the artist copyright holder. Okay, so this is kind of important to think about that things that way. So when you think about podcast music, you need to really understand that you have a lot of capabilities, a lot of possibilities. You also have some case studies, okay, where you actually can see that having music or no music doesn't really change things a lot as long as you are in sync with what your audience is looking for. So the thing is that pocket-sized podcasting is actually one quick tip each day. This is a show. Actually, I'm just sharing with you a few examples, okay? And where you for pocket-sized podcasting, you have no music. This is actually a one quick tip every day style show in that teaching you how to podcast. And episodes are on average only a minute long. Can you imagine that? People are having 30 minutes podcasts, but they are having only 1 minute. So this is kind of cool. Okay. You also have Podcraft intro and outro music. Podcraft is actually a much more long form how to podcast series where actually you can go in depth on a particular topic, and episodes can be 45 minutes to an hour long. Okay, and you also have hostile worlds, and you have music throughout this podcast. And this what we love about hostile worlds is that it's a fully soundscaped audio drama and documentary style hybrid. There are a few moments in the show that don't include music. Beds tend to run underneath each conversation or monologue, while music is also used for transitions between each scene. So that's kind of cool because it gives more context. It really helps you see the difference there. Now, one thing for sure, I want to go back to what I said here. It's all about what works for you, what works for your audience, what kind of niche you're in, because some niches are kind of they're more some niches are more favorable to a certain use of music or not. By the way, so you got to really see, and if you know your audience pretty well, you know what works for them and you know what doesn't work for them. One thing for sure, a sonic brand at a very minimum, having a certain element of sonic branding can really help you because it really helps to differentiate your show, your podcast, among the millions of podcasts out there in this world this year. Now, let me talk to you about some legality here, some legal stuff here. Can you use copyrighted music on your podcast? In short, no. I mean, this is one of those things where you do not want to go that route. Otherwise, it would just be you'll be just exposing yourself too much. Okay, you'll find a lot of info out there about how you can use copyrighted music for up to 7 seconds, or let's say debates around what constitutes fair use of music. Blah 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 blah. So fair use is actually a defense you can try to use if you get in trouble for alleged copyright violation. But why even take the risk of needing a defense when there are plenty of legal options available? Okay, don't try to really expose your ass. Do not do that. Okay, if you are busy actually building a podcast business, you should focus on that and try to really go for songs that are really copyright free. Okay, and one of those things you got to ask yourself: will your listeners unsubscribe because they don't actually get to hear 10 seconds of Bohemian Rhapsody at the start? No, no. I mean, if the answer is definitely yes, then it's definitely time to go back to the content planning stages, because it means that your content is not solid enough to actually draw listeners in. Okay, it's one of those things where you got to ask yourself what works and what doesn't work for your specific show, and you got to also think about how you can add value. Think about that. Think about adding value to. The thing is, your listeners should not be actually coming to your show for music. Okay, it doesn't matter how beautiful your music is or how copyright free your music is, unless you have a podcast on music specifically. Your content, the solidity, the depth and breadth of your content should be actually strong enough to actually draw in the audience. Okay, that's what you want. That's what you want to think about. And one thing I want to say here is that one thing for sure, if you're interested in this conversation more, let us know in the comment section. And basically, I'll be very happy to connect with you and give you all sources of copyright-free music, so that you don't get your ass in trouble, like vis-a-vis the law, because that's really a waste of time, really. Like people don't listen to folks telling you about the fair use or whatever. No, no, no. You want to really go. You want to comply with the law, and you want to also make sure you're not violating anybody's right. So what's the strategy here? When you think about podcast music, how can you buy commercial podcast music? Okay, it's one of those things where you have to see what works for your specific situation. Okay, well, number one, you want to look for one track for a podcast theme tune. It's one of those things where you want to see based on your licenses or based on your niche. You want to see what works for the podcast theme tune. That means what? That means you can buy a track for one single payment and use it forevermore. This is great for regular theme tunes that you want to use for months or even years or even decades for that matter. Okay. Now beware of licenses like this that have a cap on the number of downloads you are allowed, or let's say the length of time it covers. Some have a limit of say 10K downloads or 15K or even 20K downloads. Some require renewal every year or every 2 years or every 3 years. Okay. Fortunately, such restrictive licenses are pretty rare nowadays, but you should always read the small print before diving in and paying for a song. You also can look for a big range of tracks, loops, or effects for regular use. In this case, a subscription license might be better. That means what? It means that you actually pay a monthly subscription for access to many, often thousands of tracks. Sometimes, actually, what happens here is that the license allows you to use as many tracks, loops, or effects as you want on any episode, as long as your subscription rather is active when that episode is released. You don't have to be subscribed forever to keep your old episodes active, but you have to be subscribed when you release new episodes using their music. There are exceptions though, as you actually you will find out as you dig into this industry a lot more. And if you are looking for a custom made podcast intro music or song, that's totally also possible. You can get totally unique theme tunes or idents made just for you by a professional producer or even musician. This is totally unique to you and will tend to be of great quality. But of course, it could also be very expensive because if you want something customized, then you have to be willing to pay for it. Okay, it's one of those things where you have to ask yourself around, or just let us know in the comment section if you are interested in this proposition, in this option, and we'll just share with you some of the resources that we have, and even guide you to producers in your area. By the way, but when you actually comment, please tell us the city and state you are commenting from. That way, we can find out how to direct you a lot more easily to a local producer. Let me share with you the best here. So I want to talk to you about the best podcast music libraries. Okay, the first one I want to share with you here is Audio Hero. So when you think about Audio Hero, I want you to think about an online library of more than 300,000 royalty-free music tracks and sound effects available to you for download. Okay, and this is kind of cool. And the cool thing is you can also get some exclusive discounts too. So that's really fantastic. The second player I want to share with you here is Epidemic Sound. So Epidemic actually boasts a library of over 30,000 tracks, and they add new ones every week. They also have a 60 to 75,000 strong sound effect library. This is ideal if you like to do a bit of soundscaping in your show. This is really cool also. Okay, you have flexibility, and so their subscription tier prices are around $15 a month for the personal plan, and $50 a month for the commercial plan. Then you also have Shutterstock. So Shutterstock takes a strict approach to quality control in their library, and they say that most who submit music don't get accepted. So this highly exclusive approach to curation makes their library of tracks stand out. So we love that a lot. And Shutterstock's new unlimited subscription includes both music and SFX, and 30,000 tracks and 8,000 metaverse ready immersive SFX, starting at about $20 per month. Okay, and 100% of Shutterstock tracks are copyright clear and can be used forever once licensed. And finding the right music for your project is kind of easy. And what we love about Shutterstock is that their library is optimized for a painless search, thanks to precise filters that let you browse by genre, mood, popularity, freshness, and more. And the in-house music team adds dozens of tracks weekly, so you've always got music at your fingertips. So that's really fantastic. We love that a lot. Next, you have a Premium Beat by Shutterstock. So Premium Beats royalty-free music tracks are actually 100% exclusive and copyright clear. And Premium Beat collections span multiple styles, giving you the feel of big production houses. And what we love here is that you are able to have a ton of sound effects available in their library too. So if you are working on something a bit more highly produced, then you also have another player I want to share with you. That's Envato Elements. And this is actually the subscription service from longtime royalty-free asset marketplace Envato. They are behind some of the biggest creative marketplaces on the web, of which Audio Jungle is the audio showpiece. And this is kind of cool. And Envato's Elements subscription gives you access to their full royalty-free music library, boasting nearly 100,000 to 250,000 tunes. Add to that, you have 500,000 sound effects, and there's no doubt you'll find everything you need. Okay, and to help with that, Elements offers all the standard categories and search filters, allowing you to actually narrow down your search super fast. So that's kind of cool. And one thing that stands out is actually the Envato's Elements vocal sample library, which might interest podcasters who are looking to produce actually more sophisticated theme tunes to really suit their brand. So that's kind of cool. And you also have podcast music and sound effects with Videvo. And by the way, we actually we reviewed Videvo on another show. So if you're interested in learning more, you can go and check out that show. Okay. So relative free platform Videvo has free stock music and SFX, which are really ideal for starting a podcast with little or no money. And Videvo actually has thousands of tracks which you can browse through by genre or even mood. So that's really good, especially if you are thinking about doing things on a scalable manner. By the way, Envato's a huge advantage justifying that cost for many are the other resources you get alongside the music, right? Photos, stock, videos, YouTube templates, graphics templates, you name it, creative assets. Envato's got it. So if you do other things around your podcast, like video or image heavy social, then this could really work for you, especially if you're thinking again, once again, in terms of scalability. I want to talk to you about music with voiceover. So if you think about podcast music, this could be also another possibility for you to really look into. Okay, and so music radio creative goes beyond simply helping you choose music from your podcast for your podcast. They'll also work with you to design tailor-made intros, outros, transitions, stingers, and jingles. So that's kind of cool in terms of giving you some good audio branding. So we love that a lot. And Music Radio Creative actually collaborates with some of the best voiceover talents in the world to craft your message into this segment. Okay, and you also have freelance composers. So this is actually if you are looking for a complete custom solution, and freelance composers are actually the thing is that there are a surprising amount of musicians out there who upload their material for free use on a Creative Commons basis. And the big benefits of going down this route is that you're a lot less likely to bump into another podcast using the same theme tune as you. And this is kind of cool. And some musicians, by the way, will also be open to working with you to custom score podcast music if you like something unique put together. This is kind of cool, especially if you're looking for doing things down the road a lot faster. So, bottom line here is what you got to see what works for you. You got to see what works for your specific podcast or your specific situations too. Okay, and one thing I want to say is that you got to really ask yourself how are you willing how soon do you want things to get done too? Because the bottom line here is that if you are looking for something real fast, then you might have to actually pay for it, right? It's one of those things where you got to ask yourself what can really improve my audience's user experience or listener experience, if you will. And that's going to help you actually down the road actually improve things. And one thing I also want to say is that you got to really see the scalability aspect of things. How scalable is your technique? So overall, where can you find free podcast music? Well, it's possible to get podcast music for free, that's for sure. But you have to remember, being free, that music is going to be used on a lot of other podcasts, right? So there's no differentiation here. You're just the one of many podcasts out there. So if branding is important to you, then you want to think about the differentiating yourself. If you listen to more than a few dozen shows, you will start to hear the same music pop up again and again. This doesn't help your audio branding and make you sound very pro. But if you are on a budget or purely podcasting from a hobbyist or creative outlet perspective, then by all means, go down the free route through, okay? And you can always upgrade later on if you feel the need. So you have actually the podcast host. So this is actually this platform gives you a full free podcast music packs, okay? And this is kind of cool. You can check out their own collection of free podcast music packs. This is actually a small collection of packs that are normally only available to Elite 2 subscribers. You can try also Incompetech. Incompetech actually is an extensive library of free-to-use music created by composer Kevin MacLeod, okay? And a lot of his work is actually scored for film and documentary. And this can really work well on fictional pieces if you are an audio drama or docupod creator. You can also try to ask an artist friend. Why not? I mean, if you have somebody in your entourage to kind of help you out, this is also possible. If you have a musical friend, approach them to see if it will be all right to use one of their songs as your podcast intro music. In exchange, you can always make sure to credit them at the beginning of each episode and direct your listeners to their website. this can be a beneficial relationship for both parties. That's what you want, right? You want a win-win. So you can, of course, offer to pay them for their music or buy them dinner or repay them with a skills exchange, a bootstrapping, if you will. That could be anything from helping them set up and run their own podcast to carrying and setting up equipment at their next gig, or even actually setting up their website. I mean, it's all about being a situation where you are also adding value to your friend. If you can have a win-win situation, that will be really that will be very beneficial for both parties. So in closing into this conversation, I spoke to you about podcast music, and I give you the general considerations. I give you the decision, the strategy, and the best of the best this year. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.